There's an unwritten rule in the car world when it comes to buying somebody else's unfinished project. Don't. But sometimes there's a project that comes along that's just too cool and you have to give it a chance. This is the new 427 work van, a T3, and there's something very, very cool about it. Allow me to show you. I'm Tomo, this is 427 Motorsports, and oh yeah, there's another TDI. Let's get a look. Now, like any 427 Motorsports project, there's work to be done. Before we go any further, let's have a little look about what makes the T3 a T3, or a T25, or a Vanagon. We've inadvertently become big transporter hoarders here at 427. We've had the T4 for years, we got the T2 last year, the bay window, and now we're splitting the difference with the T3, or T25, or Vanagon. Over here in Ireland and the UK, we call it the T25. In the rest of Europe, they call it the T3. And in the States, they also call it a Vanagon. So if you're looking at the title of this video and thinking to yourself, what the hell is a Vanagon? Sorry, but unfortunately the States is what we gotta adhere to try and get those clicks. What it definitely isn't, though, is a Type 3. Allow me to explain. Volkswagen's naming nomenclature can be a bit misleading or confusing. Not as bad as Mercedes, mind you, but still not great all the same. But the problem is pretty simple actually when you think about it. The Type 1 was the Beetle, the first one, the beginning. Type 2 was the commercial, also known as the Splitty, affectionately. And then Type 3 was another Beetle derived car which came in many different body styles such as fastback, notchback and so on. The confusion lies in the generations of the commercials. For example, where we would say Mark 1 or Mark 2 to denote what generation of Golf we're talking about, when it comes to transporters we actually use the T designation, which I assume means transporter, even though they didn't actually use the word transporter until the T3. And I think that is where people get confused, because the T doesn't stand for type. As for why T25 and Vanagon, well, maybe in the States they figured that Vanagon was a more sellable title, considering the T4 was called the Eurovan. As for T25, well, that's anyone's guess. Anyway, now that's cleared up, let's talk about the T3. Introduced in 1979, the T3 was to take the now aging VW layout of a rear-engined, rear-wheel drive van into the 1980s. Taking over from the bay window, it was more spacious, more refined, and by the mid-80s was even available not only as a water-cooled boxer, but also as a diesel, utilising the same base block that was available in its Golf counterparts. Speaking of Golfs actually, the T3/25/Vanagon was the beginning of the van being basically a big Golf. I would say this is probably the transporter at its most Golf. I mean, for a start, just look at the styling. More than ever, and probably ever since, the T25 just looked like a big Golf. I mean, it's basically a big Mark 1. They even share Golf headlights. I think they're Mark 2, they're just mounted differently. The T3 though, compared to its other transporter siblings, definitely had the coolest versions. For example, there was the Synchro, which was a four-wheel drive T3. I know there were concepts of the bay window, but there was never a four-wheel drive one before. And even Porsche and Roof had their own examples of the T25, both with turbocharged 911 engines in the back. Now, I personally have always been a big fan of the T25. They were around when I was a kid and my brother had one, and I had a lot of early memories in being in his. And in fact, one of his was also TDI swapped. Although I think his was out of an Audi 80, which would be the earlier type, which you've seen me plonk into Mark II Golfs over the years. So it's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way that I now own both types of Volkswagens that I grew up with, T25s and Mark II Golfs. Thankfully, most of the skills that I learned from doing this one is going to help me with doing the T2 bay window whenever it comes to doing that, because it's next on the list. Anyway, back to the garage. Which takes us to this one. Now, as you can imagine, I wasn't really in the market for a T25. I wasn't in the market for anything, but as things happen, it was one of those where somebody approached me and said, Tomo, I have the perfect thing for you, and it's got a TDI. So naturally it was the perfect thing for me. It did have a TDI, and well, here it is. I had to sell something for it to arrive, so the Mark II Golf van that you may remember from the channel is now sadly gone, but it's gone to a good home. It's gone to a young fella who's going to do it up with his dad and use it as a work van, which is exactly what I was hoping for. It sold really quickly and went viral on TikTok for a very short space of time, so that was very cool. Thanks everybody who messaged about that. So yes, it was a friend of mine messaged me about this saying he had it, and then it turns out it used to belong to another friend of mine and it was driven by a relative of his, and then after that another friend of mine had it, his dad had it, and then he grew up with it as a kid. It's a really long story. I actually have some interviews planned with the people, not to question them like a police officer, but just to, you know, get their history with the van, which is why, because I have all this history, the van's gonna stay orange. I had made some livery designs, but I've decided I'm not gonna do all those. I'm just gonna keep it orange, put some cool 427 sign writing on it. And I have somebody coming along to do that, which will be very cool, and I can't wait to get stuck into that. But, as I said, this is someone's unfinished project. So we should probably start to talk about the unfinished. So, as you've heard, it's a running, driving T25 with a TDI. The TDI in particular is from a Passat. The big thing about this is though, it's using a Passat gearbox. Now whenever I start to tinker with that and get that working, we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. But unfortunately it's not finished. I've got 5 forward gears, but I've got no reverse. It's been started, but it's not finished. Now I'm hoping that me and my dad can work something out, and by me and my dad I mean probably mostly him, but you know, is what it is. But if that doesn't work out, there is a kit online available to do it, but it's going to cost not far off what I paid for the van. And the thing is, for the first time on this channel, this is not one of those I bought the cheapest, because this definitely was not the cheapest. But for the first time, I've actually got what I paid for, which is great, because this van is fantastic. When it comes to bodywork and rust and all, yeah, there's some dents and things on the outside. This was, after all, a van, not a camper. But I've started to fill them all. I am under a bit of a time constraint, I'll get to that in a minute, but that's why I've already started. There's filler all over the van, and I've discovered this door isn't on properly, but I'm going to be painting the inside of the van basically tonight, all being well. But yes, I am under a bit of a time constraint because this van has no windows, so it can't go outside. The windows are here, they're just not in it, and it needs to be painted. So I'm rushing to get it all done. But anyway, we're ahead of ourselves. What also hasn't been finished is the air intake. There is no air intake yet. I'll probably make something fit. I could just go cone filter, I don't know, but I really need to get that working because the mass airflow sensor isn't very happy. Number 3, intercooler. There's no intercooler setup in this. Now, Americans in America land go crazy for needing like water to air intercoolers and really going over the top about cooling and stuff. We live in Ireland, it's not that hot here, so I think we'll be fine. What else isn't working? Throttle isn't working. Well, it works. It's a throttle pot like we've done with the Mark IIs, except it doesn't have a bracket to actually go to the pedal. So at the minute I've got one of those throttle setups that implies my legs don't work. You have to do it by hand. So I need to make a bracket for that. There is a crowd who makes a bracket, however they wanted over the price of the item to post it to Northern Ireland because everybody hates us now, I guess. So kind of on principle I said, no, I'll just make my own. So we'll work something out on that front. Wiring up at the dash isn't perfect. There's a few things not working. When I turn the light switch on, the ignition turns on, so that needs to be looked at. Really, I need a full look over of the whole wiring system, but for now, I just need to get this thing painted and the windows put in. But now we know what we have to do, I also want to talk a little bit about what I want to do. So this will be the 427 work van. I wanted a Jeep at one stage, but that's not going to happen sadly. So this van is going to be the Jeep. It did come with some center seats from a Caravelle. I'm going to fit them but make them easily removable because I want to be able to strap engines down in this thing, go and lift parts and stuff like that. So tow bar for the back, winch for the front, 2 MX5 seats for the front. I got them for the bay window, but these are bay window seats, so I'm going to put those into the bay window. And it means the bay window is just going to be a camper now, which is a bit less pressure on me, which is good. That means I can have a bit more fun with this thing. Up front, we're going to have a CarPlay radio, speakers. I'm going to have to make door cards, I think, unless I can get some cheaply. There are some things missing. Up top, the van came with a massive roof rack, which is currently sitting outside. Had to take it off because it won't fit because the garage door is not big enough. But the plan is to have some KC daylighters along the top. I'll put a mock-up on screen of what I hope for this van to look like. And then I'm going to deck the roof rack and have a ladder down the side so you can climb up, strap things down, or you can even put deck chairs up there and sit and vibe, whatever you want to do. Inside, the floor is going to be painted. Everything else really is going to be painted, but then I'm going to have some stretch carpet on the sides. I'll be fitting a diesel heater because if I'm going far away to get parts, I want to be able to spend the night in this, so it's still going to have minor camping equipment. It'll have curtains, it'll have a diesel heater, which means I need to wire in a switchboard for flicking that on and off, and I've got some LED lights and stuff. It's all ordered, it's all already here, so that hopefully will spur me on to get it done. And it's good practice for the bay window because the bay window is the next project. I know this is going to annoy some people. The GTI 1.8T was meant to be next, but then this came along and it has to be done quickly because it's bare metal. So I am so sorry, but I will come to the GTI after the bay window. I promise you. Stick with this. This will be fun and cool and you'll enjoy it. I hope.
So the first step for painting the inside and the outside is to mask off the windows. I did this using brown masking paper and a load of masking tape.
So, now with the interior all sanded down and panel wiped and all the rest, it's time to actually start painting. Now I did get myself some goodies for doing this. I got a new HVLP spray gun, which I'll talk about when I'm doing the outside of the van. And I got myself a mask, so for the first time in my life I'm actually going to look after myself while I do this, believe it or not. And we got mixing cups, we got paint, and I got an on-gun regulator, which means I should be able to finally balance the pressures and stuff like that. Anyway, so I've got a hat on so I don't get overspray in my hair because I've never really wanted to be ginger and I don't think that'll ever change. And some gloves so you know they don't go ginger as well. Anyway, right, here's our paint. I have gone for single pack paint, which is kind of commercially hard wearing sort of stuff. I got it from my local paint place, Autobits, where I used to work. Hi people from Autobits, if you're watching. This is the stupid stuff I get up to using your paint. And if you can see, that is the colour. So as this is being painted on the budget, and isn't everything on this channel on a bloody budget, I decided to go for single pack commercial paint. It is a commercial vehicle after all. But what do I mean when I say single pack? Well, picture you go into a shop and you buy a tub of paint to paint your fence. You stick a brush in, you brush it on and you wait for it to dry. That is single stage paint. The binder, as they call it, dries with the air. But the alternative is a two-stage paint, or 2K some people call it, and as the name implies, there's two stages to it. You have your paint and then you mix it with hardener. Now you don't necessarily need clear coat with this unless you want to, but it will have its own natural good shine. And it also wouldn't be available as a metallic because that would be a base coat kind of paint where you would have to lacquer over the top. So why would you go single stage? Well, can't really think of many pros to be honest. Apart from the obvious, it's a lot cheaper. The total cost of painting this van I think is about 70 quid including materials. I did spend more than that because I got more paint than I needed because I didn't realise how little I would actually need. I got the ratios wrong with the thinner. I thought you only had to thin it by 10%. Turns out it was 50% and that meant I had nearly double the amount of paint I actually needed. Oh boy, guess I'm doing everything orange for the next while. But you'd be paying a good chunk more than that to do it in a two-stage paint. Probably not enough to warrant not doing it for most people, but on a budget build, you know, every penny counts. And for me, the money's not spent on painting it with the more expensive paint, can be spent on things like the stretch carpet and the winch and the bumpers and everything that it goes towards. I also don't mind if I have to redo it in a few years' time, because if I did it once I can do it again. Plus if anybody damages it or prangs it or bumps into it or scrape anything, you can very easily just touch it in with a brush and it'll be fine. Now I will admit, painting didn't go overly rosy. It turned out well in the end, as you'll see, but I did have some issues. Again, the aforementioned thinner problem, which I went on to explain when I was doing it, that you only need so much, and I filmed all that and now it's all irrelevant. But hey ho. So I'm going to give that a good shake. I did get a paint mixer stirrer thing, but I can't be arsed getting it out right now. I'll do it whenever I'm doing the proper car. Painted a couple of cars before. I am not a painter, and I do not wish to undersell the difficulty of painting. There's a reason it's expensive, because it is extremely hard and very time consuming, but I have a time limit, so I'm going to do it myself. It's just like a big model car, that's what I'm going to tell myself. So because this is a single stage paint, I don't need to mix in any hardener or anything like that. I can just pour this straight in. It's going to go everywhere. No, we're good. Okay. I need to stir this with something. I'm going to stir it, and I'm going to do it off camera because you're not going to want to see what I'm going to use to stir it. It's not anything rude, it's just probably not a good idea. Now, because this is a new gun, I have no idea what the settings are going to be. I have a rough idea what the pressure should be, but I won't really know until I start to do stuff. So, bottoms up. Now this cup is fit to take 600 mils, and this was just under 500, so that might be enough to do the whole inside. It might not, I'm not really sure. Again, I'm only doing one coat and it's getting it fairly heavy, but there's also no glass, or there's also should be windows and stuff, so you never know. So to do a test, I'm just going to spray some on the side. Now that's too much, so I just need to... So here we go. I'd like to interrupt this part of the video to just say a big thank you to everybody on Patreon and everybody who's bought t-shirts. You are all the best. I can't believe you want to pay money for me to do this kind of weird ass shit, but here we are. You're here and it's great. It's awesome. Thank you very much. There'll be a link at the start of the comments with a Patreon in it. You can also buy t-shirts. I'm a graphic designer and I design t-shirts. We have a web store. There is a t-shirt for this build. Any big builds, I tend to do a t-shirt for them. This one is called Identity Crisis because nobody really knows whether to call this thing a T25 or a T3 or a Vanagon or all three. So if you want to support this, there's a cool t-shirt. There's not very many T25, T3, whatever t-shirts out there. Go and get yourself one, and every penny goes towards fixing this and getting it on the road. Thank you all so much. Back to the video. So as you probably no doubt heard in post, that interior spraying didn't quite go to plan. Turns out my ratios for the paint thickness were completely wrong. Instead of 10% thinner, it's actually meant to be close to 50-50, which you live and you learn. But turns out the guns were fine and I got through it okay. So the interior kind of looks okay. It's not ideal, but what do? We're on a budget and most of it's going to be covered with lino, rubber and timber anyway, so it doesn't really matter. The next step though is bodywork. Now again, I don't want this van to be perfect. It has to be a work van, but that's no excuse for laziness. So it does mean I want to take out some of the worst of the dents, finish the bodywork that the previous owner had started, and try and make it look like a not total heap of shit when it's done. So last night I got started sanding down, filling, priming, sanding again, filling again, sanding, priming. I see why it's a tenuous process, to be honest, but it's starting to look really good, and I've got one side basically finished. I have to do the other side. The front is a little bit more to do, and on the back there's a little bit more finessing as well. And then I'm ready to sand the whole thing down with the proper sander to probably, I'm going to say about 400 grit, because this is a bit harsh, and then I'll move up to something like 600 grit maybe, and that'll give me a good surface for the primer to adhere to, and then I'll prime it and I'll get ready to paint it. So, fingers crossed. So it's 10:30 on Thursday night. I plan on having this painted by Saturday. Fun. I spent the entire day doing bodywork, so let's have a look around. You might be able to hear it's absolutely chucking it down, and this is why I'm very glad I'm in a shed. So,
basically, I've gone over most of it. There's a couple of bits that I still want to fill, like that there. But I'm going around all the bits of filler, sanding them back, making sure I'm happy with the actual look of the thing, and then giving the whole lot a rough sand. So I've done this whole side, I've done the top part of the front, haven't done the upper of the front, and I haven't done the lower of the front. I'm starting to run out of sanding pads and things, so yeah, I'm doing what I can with what I got. Had to go into a wide angle lens for this, but the boot lid hasn't been sanded, but the last of the filler has been done. So it's just a case now of going over the roughness. And then a lot of this side is done. Haven't done this door yet. I've done this front bit, haven't done that pillar. Where else are we? Sliding door is a bit iffy. It doesn't quite sit right, and I'm guessing that's something to do with the runners, purely because there's no rot. So it kind of has to be. This bit here is mostly all roughly sanded, and then this corner too is looking pretty good as well. So tomorrow in work, I'm going to get some more supplies. I've started to run out of sanding pads and things. I've had to use pretty harsh grits on this, which is shitty, but the original paint seems to be bubbling up, so I have to get rid of that. So I have to dig deep to get rid of that. But yeah, it's going well so far. I will do another one of these tomorrow night, and then fingers crossed Saturday, prime and paint. So it's the big day. I have sanded the rest of the van down, masked off all the bits and pieces. So now it's time to panel wipe the whole thing down. Panel wipe basically is alcohol, well, you wouldn't drink it, but basically it's an alcohol thing that you use to wipe down, and it gets rid of any contaminants that might be on the van, which means that when I lay down the primer, it shouldn't react, and all hopefully should be well. So now I just need to cover up the rest of the garage, because I will be shouted at if any paint gets on everything else. Lay down some primer and hope for the best. And so, after a long and very arduous week, finally I have a painted T25, and I have to say it's probably my best paint job yet, and I'm very proud of it. Sorry I didn't get any shots of it actually being painted. I was all by myself, so it was very difficult to try and do both things, so I had to prioritize the actual painting. But I think you'll agree it looks damn good. So hopefully the next time you see this thing, it's going to get Windows. And I ain't talking about an operating system for a computer. This would be Windows 83, I guess. So that wraps it up for this video. I was going to do the whole thing and video the whole lot, but I thought let's stagger it a wee bit. So we've got it painted. The next step is to sort an intercooler. Well, after getting the windows in, is to sort the intercooler, sort the air intake, the throttle bracket, and what else? Then I've got things like lighting and stretch carpet and stuff like that, but that's all by the by. So for now, thank you so much for watching if you've watched this far. I've been Tomo, this is 427 Motorsports. Check out our Patreon, check out our Discord, check out the web store, just do a whole load of checking out, I guess. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and see you in the next one. Good luck!